How'd you meet Gavin?
Gavin and I met through a mutual friend of ours. Oh man, many many years ago. Will Bonham, Will Conlon, and yeah, he basically put us together because he I knew him through a project we worked on together. He was an actor and I was the composer on it, and he had a project that he was working on, a TV pilot. And I just loved the story so much. I loved what Will was writing that I just sort of wrote some music for him. And he knew Gavin because Gavin was working on another movie at the time, Four Shots, and he said, "You should hear some of the stuff that Adrian's doing for me." And then it took us about 2 years before we ended up actually doing anything together.
What was the first one?
First one was To Hell with Love.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
And how many projects have you guys worked on?
Oh yeah, we were counting this today. So I think we've done 5 shorts and two. This will be our second feature together.
Okay, so tell me about this project because this one's kind of unique.
Yeah. So Last Call is a single take movie. There'll be no cuts. It's all done in a single take, split screen, 2 actors in 2 locations. So it's a really unique viewing experience for the audience because you don't get scene breaks. You're always seeing the actors at every moment on that screen. And it's a story about a desperate man at the end of his rope who suffered a major tragedy in his life and has decided to end his life, and because he doesn't want to be alone more than have somebody talk him out of it, calls a suicide hotline, or at least what he thinks is a suicide hotline, and by accident gets the night janitor at a local college. The movie sort of moves to this relationship that builds as these two people try to find their way through this phone call. And when Gavin described what he was doing, there's always this sort of moment in our conversations early on where it's like, oh, what's the concept going to be? Like, where are you taking this? What's the angle? And so, of course, when he said that, I'm like, wow, single take, that's crazy. So I guess I'm going to have to do the score in one take too, basically. Right? So he took that away, and then at some point down the road when he was filming, we hadn't talked for a few weeks, and he sends me a text that's a little CBC player link, and I'm like, oh cool, we got some coverage. I click it, I'm watching, I'm like, oh, this is so great, they're already getting some traction. Oh, look at Sarah, and like it was really cool. And then they cut back to the studio, and the announcer goes, and the movie's not the only thing that's gonna be done in a single take. I'm like, right, we haven't talked about this. I don't even know if this is possible. Like,
and by the way, that sentence has been said by every human being who's ever worked with Gavin. It's
right.
Like, yeah, oh wait, we haven't talked to. All right, well, let's do it.
Yeah, no, it's true, and I was only upset for about 2 seconds, and then I realized, no, this is great because now you're bound to this challenge because you can't back out of it. And,
right.
And I've always, or not always, for the last 10 or 12 years of my career, I've found, just by happenstance of being in certain situations, that when you stand near the deep end of the pool and someone pushes you in, that's usually a good thing, because you're going to figure out a way to swim, and then you'll know how to swim, and that's a great place to be. So I've always tried to put myself purposely in those situations where I'm not really sure how it's going to turn out, to the point now where I know it's going to work out one way or another.
So talk to me about what you guys are doing tomorrow. So tell me what it looks like to do a one take,
right,
audio take for a film.
Yeah. So normally what you would do is you would have a very sterile, clinical, acoustically treated, quiet, managed environment for your musicians to come together in, and you'd be behind a glass and having conversations, and you'd put the music in front of the, like, I mean, it's always a pressurized environment when you're doing film music because it's so expensive to record music with musicians, and there's a specialized kind of breed of musicians that's able to do that kind of session work where literally you walk in.
Is it always in groups, or do you ever track?
Oh, you track this. You can do it every which way.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's all right. Yeah. If you're doing ensembles, like if you're doing a traditional kind of orchestral recording, it's going to be, they do track nowadays because oftentimes they'll be like, well, you can't get the balances that you necessarily want if the timpani's pounding away. You can't hear the strings as well, and you also want separation so you can mix it. I mean, the way that film music or orchestral film music is mixed doesn't sound like classical music anymore, right, because it's kind of mixed like rock music in a way. But normally you'd be behind the glass, and then you do a take and you give notes, and maybe you punch in and get a little bit, fix this, no, and then you'd sort of make this like molded, sculpted product as you're going along. What we're doing in this case is we've got our string quartet. So we've got a nice, manageable, small ensemble, which is chosen specifically also because it matches the scope of the film. I wanted it to be intimate. I wanted it to be about single voices. So you're matching the voices of the actors on the screen. You've got characters being their music is oftentimes a single instrument that's carrying that. And what we do in this case is the players will sit down and see the music. They've seen it a little bit in advance, but not very much. And they'll basically play through the entire thing in one take. And one of those takes, we're going to do it a number of times, and then one of those takes is going to be the take.
The one.
So, going back to what you were saying about what people say about working with Gavin, I sort of feel like you put people into a pressurized environment, but you say you're going to be amazing. Like, this is going to be so cool. And then they bring out, you don't make them feel nervous or bad or stressed out. You go, yeah, I understand this is kind of crazy, but this is the reason why we're doing it, right? We're trying to elevate this. We're trying to bring this energy and this grit and a little bit of the unknown into this whole thing. It's not safe. What we're doing is not safe. And I think that that's when really cool stuff happens. And on the other hand, you have to have the attitude that at the end of the day, you're going to look at it and go, it's not perfect. You're going to have little hiccups and blips and misfires and maybe a bit of noise here and there. And you're just going to go, that's fine.
Is that a struggle for you on this one? No,
that's never been a struggle for me. I love, I'm not a perfectionist in that sense. Okay. I'm a perfectionist in other sense. I mean, to me, what's the main thing, right? The main thing is that an audience understands and resonates with the story that we're trying to tell. And whatever means you can employ to get that, you use. We're facing all sorts of challenges and limitations. You have to work within those boundaries. And then it's like, if there's a little bit of noise, is that as important as the emotional resonance of what the piece feels and sounds like, right? One of my most powerful musical experiences was the same girlfriend gave me a copy of Jeff Buckley's Grace, but it was on a tape that she dubbed 100 other things on before. So it was like Grace, but it
would bleed through. Yeah.
And I just thought, this album is from outer space. It sounds so weird and distant and mysterious, and I just thought it was the best sounding thing I'd ever heard in my life. And it was partly because it was badly dubbed onto a crappy tape, and the fidelity wasn't there. And then when I heard it on CD for the first time, it was all clear and perfect and crystalline, and I was like, what happened? What happened to this beautiful album that I love? Like, where's the wool? Like, it used to have this blanket of gorgeous, like, gauzy, like, fog all over it, and now that's gone. I was really, like, upset about it. I'm like, well, I know my Grace is the Grace that has fog and, like, is muffled and warbly and kind of tape warps. So, I think that's what it's going to be like for this. Whether it's something that's pristine or, so perfect that it's boring, that's not going to happen here.
Don't forget, you can subscribe to our full audio episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere you find your audio podcasts. The full episodes, highlights, and our live off-the-floor performance videos can be found at our YouTube channel, and you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram at the AVB Podcast. Of course, you'll find links to our incredible sponsors and this week's guest in the description below. The AVB Podcast is part of the Border City Network. Find more great content at bordercitynetwork.com. See you next time, folks. Bye-bye.